Cavern is a 2019 horror novel by Alister Hodge. So, very recently I've started getting into audiobooks. I don't prefer them, but having recently escaped the shackles of retail and been fortunate enough to find a job where I can have headphones on for the entire shift, I have suddenly found myself in the market for things I can listen to. And so I have. The Cavern was available through my local library, and seeing the cover and the summary and the setting, Australia, I thought I would give it a try. The story starts off with a couple of cavers, a husband and wife team, who descend into a cave system on a farmer's property in the Australian outback. They proceed to get eaten by a monster in a cave. Cut to our main character, Sam, a paramedic. He's going with his girlfriend, Ellie, her brother, Max, and their friends, Aaron and Frida, to the very same cave in which our prologue cannon fodder died in. This group is somewhat better suited to the task, being larger, more experienced, and more dedicated to safety. Sorta. Ella and Max decide to go descending into a cave later without permission, and that doesn't seem very safe to me, but okay. So, there's two parts to this, the caving and the potential cave diving. Sam's fine with the former, not so fine with the latter. At the beginning of the story, we learn that he's recently lost a young patient to a drowning, so he's understandably not in love with the idea of diving. So the group heads out to this little dying outback town that used to thrive off of the opal mining industry. Did not know that opal was mined in Australia. Anyway, a lot of those mines are closed down now for no particular reason. Yeah, sure, the mines are still very much full of opal, but why mine opal when we could not? Nothing suspicious here. Wink, wink. So the group of cavers gets to town and are almost immediately told, sorry, never mind, the local council says you can't go down into that cave. My Yankee understanding of the word local council is that it's basically the local government, but feel free to correct me if I'm off. Sam and Ellie soon learn that there's a local legend here called the Miner's Mother, a creature that prowls the opal mines. Some used to make blood sacrifices to the creature to ensure safe passage through the mines, as well as warnings for when mine collapses were about to happen. Oh, and this is just casually mentioned, but a meteor hit the area at some point before this all started to happen. Wink, wink. We quickly learn that everything is 100% real. The miner's mother is real, and a lady named Kaz has been making sacrifices to it. The creature killed her father and brother back in the 1970s, and now it's awake again. She's trying to appease it with animals, but once a few people start to disappear from around town, it becomes clear that it's not working. So now it's time for human sacrifices in the form of our protagonists. Kaz heads the local council and is only temporarily barring them from going down into the caves so that she can later plausibly deny setting them up if any higher authorities come knocking. Relevant to the plot are two other characters. Mia, the lone paramedic in a town who unknowingly nearly gets human sacrificed by Kaz, and Jack, a pub owner who tries to warn Sam and the others off of going into the cave system. Jack's also a Vietnam veteran who went down into the mines with Kaz's father back in the day to kill the miner's mother, and incidentally watched her father and little brother die that day. So our protagonists go into the cave system and, shit really hits the fan. The fun thing about the miner's mother is that it's kind of like a chameleon. It can imitate people or things that it's eaten, which is how it lures its victims in. This is, incidentally, how it kills half the victims in the book. It imitates Kaz's little brother, ostensibly because it understands that humans are less likely to be afraid of a child. It's only when you're up close that you suddenly realize that you are mega-boned. A sequence of events leads Frida, Aaron, and Kaz being killed and the entrances to the cave being blocked off in an explosion, save for one that leads out through the mines. Max is attacked by the miner's mother and dragged off to be fodder for her newly hatched children as Ellie and Sam escape through that one mine exit. They, Mia, and Jack decide to descend back into the mines under the belief that Max is still alive. And he is! For all of 2 seconds before the babies burst out of his flesh from where they've chewed into him. Then Ellie gets smirked by the miner's mother, and Sam is understandably pissed, and so in spite of Jack having a literal heart attack, he, Sam, and Mia all agree to stay behind and kill the miner's mother to guarantee she never does this again. They succeed, Jack dies, and Sam and Mia survive. The story ends off on a member of the Australian military, I cannot remember his rank and do not care enough to go back and check, checking in with a scientist about the alien samples that were collected and sent off by Frida prior to her death, and then vowing to go to war against any remaining aliens. Which is some big talk for a representative of the military force that lost a war against a bird. Sorry, Australia, but you can't give me that invitation and not expect me to take advantage of it. Okay, that felt like a lot as I was narrating it, and that's because it kind of was. So my first issue with this book is the cover. It kind of gives a vibe that this is mostly going to be water-based horror, but it mostly takes place in the caves in the Australian outback. Additionally, those legs on the cover say spider more than they do humanoid alien terror. In sheer fairness to the author, this could have been a miscommunication in the cover making process, or alternatively, it could be that this was done deliberately so as not to tip off the audience as the nature of the miner's mother, but still, the cover felt a little misleading to me. But speaking of the miner's mother, I didn't make this connection until I looked at some of the reviews for this book on Goodreads, but now that I think of it, okay, very tall, black-skinned humanoid figure with long, sharp claws. It has a long tail, and it bleeds green blood. It lays eggs, and while that scene with Max wasn't quite a chest-burster scene, it was pretty close. And also the miner's mother is an intelligent hunter that hides in the dark. So it's also described as having, like, a cobra-like hood that fans out when it's angry, and the xenomorphs aren't shapeshifters that I can recall, but the similarity is pretty striking. Now, again, in sheer fairness to the author, there could be an issue here with visualization. I hear those features and my brain instantly uses a xenomorph to fill in the holes. Alister Hodge could have had something completely different in terms of shape and proportions for this creature. Green blood is a little specific, though. Not acidic, that I recall, but definitely a little bit curious. It's not an accusation, it's just an observation. I will say that having the miner's mother be a shapeshifter does add an element to this that isn't present in the Alien franchise, so there's that in the author's favor. Also, if I recall correctly, the miner's mother is tough to kill, but not nearly as tough as a xenomorph either. But I get why people are drawing the connection, is what I'm saying. For all I know, he took a few aspects of the xenomorphs and slapped them onto his aliens for shits and giggles, or it could just be that his description is very similar to a xenomorph because we can't see exactly what he was imagining in his head. On the subject of the miner's mother, I was getting a little bitey myself when I kept hearing the author describe her elliptical green eyes or her halogen green eyes. Those two specific phrases were repeated ad nauseum in this book, and it drove me nuts. Beyond those things, I had one major issue with this book, and that is just, it just gave away way too much, way too quickly. You literally learn in the prologue that the miner's mother is 100% real. We even get a detailed description of what she looks like. This is the prologue, like the first 10 pages of the book, and we are robbed of any mystery surrounding the miner's mother's existence. She absolutely exists. She's absolutely in the caves, and she is absolutely the one violently murdering people. The expectations are not subverted in this book. We are also immediately confronted with her ability to camouflage herself as humans that she's eaten, which means that we have no doubt later on when Sam and Ellie see the exact same little boy that's described in the prologue that we're actually seeing the miner's mother in camouflage. The book does this repeatedly. It gives away Kaz's plot, I want to say around maybe 40% of the way through the book. I definitely feel like it was sooner than halfway, though, because there's this whole thing where Mia asks Sam to go with her to an out-of-town call because someone's been calling her out to abandoned properties and watching her. That's a good mystery. That's a good mystery to put in here to tie together later on in the book. Great mystery that is immediately solved when at the end of the chapter, Kaz steps out of the abandoned house and almost immediately reveals that she's making animal sacrifices to the miner's mother and that she's just missed out on making Mia into one. Later on, if I recall correctly, Ellie, Sam, and Frida are exploring a different cave while they wait for access to the one that they want, and they find a shrine to the miner's mother with fresh blood in it, and they're freaked out. I was not freaked out because I had already been duly informed that the miner's mother was 100% real and that someone was absolutely making sacrifices to her. I think it was maybe 3/4 of the way through the book when Ellie and Sam escape the mines after they first, go down in there. And then they run into Jack and Mia. And Jack floats the idea that the miner's mother is in her breeding season and that she's become more aggressive because she's laying eggs. This would have been a decent reveal. Not for the chapter, maybe one or two before this one, from the miner's mother's perspective, that literally just explained to me that this is exactly what's happening. It took all the punch out of the story for me. Every single piece of information is handed to the audience so quickly and so bluntly, it's not even funny. Not an ounce of subtlety or real mystery to be found. The only real question was who was going to bite it before the end, and while I grant you that Jack, Sam, and Mia were decent enough characters, the rest I just did not care about at all. They were cannon fodder. So yeah, I can't say that I recommend this one. I'm almost tempted to read the author's other works since it looks like he has a decent and varied catalog of stuff, but the storytelling just left a lot to be desired, and I'm kind of concerned I'm going to get exactly the same thing in those ones.